In my past life, Callum and I always missed each other with regret. After much difficulty, we finally got married. On the wedding night, he said he was going to help with construction projects abroad. He left me and disappeared for 10 years without any news. 10 years later, he came back with the woman he had liked since he was young, Chabelle. We didn't get a marriage certificate back then, and we didn't consummate the marriage. The wedding was not legal. I'm getting married. It's inappropriate for you to stay in my house any longer. Only then did I realize that the so-called missed opportunities one thought were just his deliberate actions. He had a happy family, was in high spirits, moved into a new house, and married a new wife. But what about me? People say the whole city is full of blooming flowers like a beautiful brocade. I came at a time when spring had passed. If I could live again, I would leave without saying goodbye on the wedding day. But he completely broke down at the wedding without a bride. Callum, your little Fawny is here to check up on you again. She's so clingy, as if she's afraid you, this phoenix, will fly away. Yeah, might as well tie you to her belt. Don't talk nonsense. Look, the little girl's face is blushing. I suddenly raised my eyes and looked at the owner of the soft female voice. It was Nand. She had black hair and fair skin and a slender figure. She smiled sweetly and purely. She was the recognized goddess in the Department of Architecture. She was also the woman Callum had been thinking about and pursuing all his life. In my past life, at this moment, I suddenly realized I was reborn. Reborn to the time before the wedding, when Callum took marriage leave to come back and hold the wedding. And Nand was the sweetheart he brought back. In my past life, at this time, she was smiling at me gently. Are you looking for Callum? He'll come downstairs soon. I stood in the sunlight. In a daze, Callum had already walked over with a cold face. What are you here for again? He walked through the crowd and stood in front of me. He grabbed my arm and pulled me to a small path aside. I'm having a reunion with my classmates. Do you have to stick around? He pushed his glasses and looked at me with displeasure. Chell, there are only 5 days until the wedding. Can you give me the last 5 days of freedom? Dense branches and leaves overhead cast a large shade. Sunlight filtered through the gaps, and the shade shimmered like broken gold on his face. But in his eyes, looking at me, there was only coldness like frost and snow. I looked at the man in front of me, the man I had loved for 18 years in my past life. Now he was in the prime of his youth, handsome and refined. But who could have thought that beneath this skin, his heart was so cold-blooded and unfeeling? I withdrew my gaze, lowered my eyes, and smiled. Sorry, Callum. I won't bother you anymore. After saying that, I turned around and prepared to leave. But Callum grabbed my arm again. What kind of temper are you throwing now? I've already agreed to marry you. What else are you not satisfied with? I suddenly turned around and shook off his hand. Callum was a little stunned, but soon the disgust in his eyes became even stronger. Chell, if you keep making trouble, we might as well cancel the wedding. I took a deep breath and swallowed all the unwillingness, grievance, hatred, and bitterness surging in my chest. I would return to him exactly what he had done to me in my past life. So when I spoke again, I softened my tone. When looking at him, there was also a hint of grievance in my eyes. I'm not making trouble. I just had some questions about the wedding and wanted to ask for your opinion, so I came. Callum waved his hand to interrupt me before I could finish. I have no opinion. I said before, just do it according to your preference. Okay, then I won't ask you about the following procedures. It seemed that because I was being very obedient, or perhaps because there was still a little bit of guilt in his heart, Callum suddenly reached out and rubbed the top of my head. All right, I'll come back early tonight to have dinner with you. I put on a happy look. Okay, I'll wait for you. Callum couldn't help but smile, but in an instant, he frowned and put away his smile. I pretended not to notice and left happily. It was not until I walked a long way that I slowly squatted down under the shade of a tree, letting my tears pour out. At dinner time, Callum came back, but not alone. He brought Nanda with him. In my past life, he had always hidden his feelings, and I knew nothing about his love for Nanda. In this life, before marrying me, he couldn't control his eagerness. Nand greeted everyone in Callum's family with a charming smile, and she gave each of them a beautifully wrapped gift. Nand was beautiful, elegant, and dignified. Standing beside the tall, slender, and gentle-looking Callum, they were a perfect match. And I seemed like an outsider who didn't belong. Chabelle, this is for you. Wish you and Callum a happy wedding. Nand walked up to me and handed me the gift. I took it generously and thanked her. She seemed a little surprised by my reaction, pursed her lips, and the smile in her eyes gradually faded. Chell, go prepare the meal quickly. Callum's mother naturally ordered me, just like she had done countless times before. I put down the gift and raised my finger with a band-aid on it. I said lightly, I accidentally cut my hand in the morning. I can't cook tonight. Jasper rolled his eyes. You're so delicate. Just because you cut your hand, you can't cook? Mia echoed, I think you just want to be lazy. Callum's mother looked at me, smiled, and said, Chell is going to be a bride. Of course, the bride is delicate. I guess this old woman has to do it. Nand quickly followed her to the kitchen. Auntie, since Chun's hand is injured, let me help you. How can that be? You're a guest. It's okay, Auntie. I'll just help with the preparations. Nand came out with the cooked dishes. Chell, come and take the dishes. I have to go back to help Auntie peel the onions. She naturally asked me to help. I stood up and was about to take the plate, but before my hand touched it, the plate suddenly overturned. The scalding fish pieces spilled all over Nand, especially on her bare calves, which instantly turned red. She let out a cry, squatted down, and covered her calf. Tears welled up in her eyes. Chell, did you do that on purpose? Callum was furious and pushed me aside. I stumbled a few steps and fell to the ground. My palm happened to press on the sticky fish pieces, and the sharp fish bones pierced my skin. My forehead also hit the edge of the table hard. Callum carefully helped Nand up, then he looked at me coldly. Apologize to Nand right now. I endured the intense pain and stood up unsteadily. Blood dripped from my palm, staining my skirt a shocking sight. Callum seemed to be stunned for a moment, then the coldness gradually filled his eyes as he looked at me. Chell, apologize. Callum, it's okay. Chell didn't mean not to take the plate. Nand quickly tugged at his sleeve and gently dissuaded him. Chell, did you hear what I said? I said apologize to Nand. What if I don't want to? Then I'll cancel the wedding immediately. Callum stood up and looked down at me. Chell, you know my temper. What I say, I won't take back. Nand stood behind him. When I looked at her, she secretly curled her lips into a smile. I knew she was provoking me. She didn't want me to apologize. She wanted the wedding to be cancelled. She wanted to marry Callum. She didn't want to marry someone she didn't love and had taken many detours. She only got her wish in her second marriage, but I didn't let her have her way. Okay, I'll apologize. I pursed my lips with tears in my eyes. My face showed both grievance and fear. And the moment I apologized, Callum obviously relaxed a little, although soon he turned cold again. Don't let it happen again. He took the first aid kit that Jasper brought. He glanced at me coldly. The wedding is just a few days away. Behave yourself. I lowered my head and wept silently, looking timid and scared. Callum carefully treated Nan's injury and then said gently, I'd better take you to the hospital to have a look in case there are scars. Is it inconvenient, Chell? She might not be happy. No, it was her fault in the first place. Callum said, then gave me an extremely cold look. She caused trouble, and I have to clean up after her. What right does she have to be unhappy? That night, Callum didn't come back. A strange number sent me several messages. He's worried about your injury, afraid you'll be in pain, and he'll stay with you tonight. Go to bed early. Don't wait in vain, new bride. She was right. I really should go to bed early. There were still many things waiting for me to deal with, such as the old houses and shops left by my parents and the inheritance they left me. I would hand the houses over to a reliable real estate agent for sale. And after liquidating and organizing all the inheritance, I would take it all away. Not a single cent would be left to Callum's family. The day before the wedding, I had to try on the wedding dress and veil down again for the final adjustments. In my past life, Callum just casually tried on the grim suit and then left. This time, he actually didn't leave even after I finished trying on the main wedding dress. He was still sitting on the sofa outside when I came out. A flash of amazement clearly appeared in his eyes. The waistline seems a bit loose. It would look better if we tighten it a little more. The stylist said softly. Callum, indeed. Chell has a slender waist. Let's tighten it a bit more. But I shook my head. No need. This is more comfortable anyway. Having fulfilled my obsession, I won't be wearing it, so it doesn't matter if it's big or small. When you first came to our home as a child, you cried every day and every night, he said as he got up and walked over, putting his arms around my waist from behind. In a blink of an eye, you've grown into a beautiful young lady, Chell. We're getting married. He lowered his head, his eyes filled with affection as he tried to kiss me. But I raised my hand to block it. There are people here. I put on a shy look. Callum chuckled, very pleased. Then we'll wait until our wedding night, he whispered in my ear. I lowered my head and smiled sardonically without a sound. Tradition has it that the bride and groom shouldn't see each other the night before the wedding. I have no home, so I was staying in a hotel. When Callum dropped me off downstairs, his phone rang. It should be Nand calling. He seemed distracted. I deliberately put on a jealous and aggrieved expression. Callum raised an eyebrow. Come on, tomorrow is the wedding. Don't give me a hard time over trivial things. Then come pick me up early tomorrow. I looked up at him, my eyes full of unease and anticipation. Callum was clearly enjoying it. I'll come at the auspicious time. Don't worry. With that, he left in a hurry. I immediately turned around and went upstairs. I checked my bank cards and passbooks one last time and made a few calls to the real estate agents. Then I took a shower and went to bed. I had a dreamless night. Callum, however, had some trouble sleeping. He took a short nap just before dawn, but somehow he dreamed of Chell. In the dream was the scene of her trying on the wedding dress yesterday. Every frown, every smile, every movement was beautiful. Before he realized it, Chell had quietly transformed into a beautiful girl. Her waist was slender, her skin was fair. Although she wasn't as tall as Nanda, she was cute and petite. Unlike Nanda, who was skinny, she still had the youthful fall and plumpness of a girl. The scenes in the dream were apt and decent. This seemed to be the first time he had such absurd desires for Chell, whom he had always looked down upon. When he was woken up by the phone, Callum felt inexplicably irritated. He even thought about whether he should postpone his departure by one day. Should he wait until after the wedding night before leaving? At least since she had loved him for so many years, it could be considered a meager return. But the voice on the phone made him instantly sober. What did you say? The bride is missing? He suddenly stood up, and his fingers gripping the phone were slightly trembling. That's impossible. Did you go to the wrong room? No, Mr. Callum. We didn't go to the wrong room. The front desk said that room was checked out 2 hours ago. Miss Chell's phone can't be reached either. The makeup artist was almost crying. Callum felt a harsh buzzing in his ears, like the clashing of weapons in battle. It took him a while to find his voice. I'll call her. Please wait for a moment. But Chell's phone couldn't be reached. Callum rummaged through his contacts randomly, not knowing who to call. He didn't have the contact information of any of Chell's friends or relatives. He knew nothing about her. Over the years, she had been chasing after him wholeheartedly. He had always been certain that he had her firmly in his grasp. So even at this moment, he still couldn't believe that Chell would dare to leave him. Callum half-heartedly put on his clothes and drove to the hotel himself. On the way, he was so flustered that he ran through red lights. When he was almost at the hotel, he called Chell again, but still couldn't get through. His heart sank uncontrollably. Just then, Willin, the makeup artist's phone call came in again. "Mr. Callum, the bride has been found. It was just a misunderstanding." Callum felt his heart suddenly settle down. The thick haze weighing on his heart seemed to be suddenly swept away by a big hand. He braked the car sharply and stopped by the roadside. His voice was a bit shaky. "Say that again, Mr. Callum." "The bride has been found. She said she didn't sleep well last night and changed rooms temporarily," the makeup artist said. Something else, but Callum didn't really hear it clearly. He leaned back in the car seat and suddenly laughed. He was really crazy. Chell loved him so deeply, so how could she run away from the wedding? What was even crazier was that he had almost believed it just now. It was really funny and absurd. Before the wedding, the family had someone calculate the 8 characters of the couple's birth dates. Due to some tears, the groom couldn't go to pick up the bride in person. When the wedding convoy that had picked up the bride returned to the wedding venue, Callum had already changed into a well-pressed and expensive black suit, holding a bouquet of flowers and standing downstairs. But when the groomsmen got out of the car, their expressions were different, and the originally arranged bridesmaids didn't show up. The bride was sitting in the car, her face covered by a white veil. Only a hazy and beautiful side profile could be faintly seen. Callum originally thought he wouldn't be very excited. After all, marrying Chell was something he was a bit reluctant about. But somehow, when he saw the bride in the car, an inexplicable ripple rose in his heart. Under that indescribable emotion, there seemed to be a hidden joy surging. He thought of how beautiful and charming Chell looked when she tried on the wedding dress for the last time. He thought of her eyes looking at him tenderly and affectionately. A soft and gentle feeling seemed to quietly grow in his heart. Besides achieving success in his career, a woman's unwavering laugh for many years could also make a man extremely proud and satisfied. He held the bouquet and slowly walked to the car. The groomsmen were all his classmates and old friends. At this moment, they seemed to want to say something to him but held back in the end. The car door opened, and Callum stretched out his hand. "Chell." He didn't know that when he said her name, there was already a faint smile in his eyes. The fingers wrapped in white lace were soft and slender, gently falling into his palm. Callum immediately held it, but at the moment he held it, a strange feeling suddenly rose in his heart. This didn't seem to be Chell's hand. Her fingers were softer, and her hand was softer too. He could hold it perfectly in his palm. Just then, the bride also turned around and got out of the car, looking at Callum shyly through the snow-white veil. However, the moment their eyes met, Callum suddenly shook off the hand he was holding as if all the color drained from his face in an instant, and all around there was a deathly silence. Nand was first stunned, then couldn't believe it. In the end, her eyes were red with grievance and embarrassment. The bouquet in Callum's hand dropped. He turned around, grabbed someone randomly, and asked, "Helly, what's going on? Where's Chell? Didn't you go to the hotel to pick her up? You didn't even notice you picked the wrong person? What are you good for?" His emotions suddenly got out of control, and his voice suddenly rose a notch. "We don't know either. When we went to pick up the bride, there was only Nanda in the room. Yeah, we didn't see Chell at all." Callum turned around, his eyes fixed on the makeup artist. "Didn't you say the bride was found? Is this what you call found?" "Mr. Callum, it's not my fault," the makeup artist was about to cry. "She was just an employee. What could she do? If Miss Nand hadn't said that she would take all the responsibility, she wouldn't have dared to tell such a lie. She just wanted to earn this money. Callum, it has nothing to do with her. It was my arrangement." Nand got out of the car. She stood up straight, her eyes very red but her face calm and composed. "Chell is missing, and the wedding is about to start. I didn't want you to be embarrassed, so I came up with this idea. If you want to blame someone, blame me. If you want to scold, scold me. It has nothing to do with anyone else." At this point, she suddenly lowered her head slightly, and the tears she had been holding back fell. Nan then gave a sad smile. "I like you so much that I did something stupid, Callum. Why don't we just make the best of this mistake? Don't you also have a crush on Nanda? Besides, Nand and you share the same ideals. Isn't she much better than your little child bride?" On such an important day as the wedding, she just laughed in a fit of pique. "Do you really want to invite her back with a grand ceremony? Who knows what kind of trouble she'll cause in the future? The auspicious time is coming soon, Callum. Make a decision quickly." Everyone was talking all at once. Nand gradually stopped sobbing, and there was a hint of anticipation in her eyes as she looked at Callum. Callum stood still for a long time, then he slowly turned around and looked at everyone. Nand in the white wedding dress was very beautiful. He didn't deny that. He and Nand did share the same ideals. He had a crush on Nand during their day-to-day interactions. But he also always knew that the person he was going to marry was Chell. He had already regarded her as his wife in his heart. Even though he had also gradually thought that Chell was no longer worthy of him, he never thought of breaking the engagement. Instead, he let her cling to him. But Callum never expected he didn't have the heart to dump Chell. He was fulfilling the promise to hold a wedding with her. Even though he was hiding from her the fact that he was going abroad for aid work, but he had also decided to postpone his departure for a few days to give her a perfect wedding and a wedding night. If he was lucky, she would have a child. From then on, she could also gain a firm foothold in the Callum family. He thought he wouldn't have let down the kindness of her family and her love for so many years. But now, Chell had disappeared on the eve of the wedding. Callum couldn't figure it out. Where did she get the courage to make such a scene with him? Just because he got a bit closer to Nand? Just because that day in the Callum family, he had protected the scalded Nand and blamed her? But where did she, Chell, get the confidence to act like this towards him? Was she not afraid that this marriage would be completely cancelled? Or did she think that relying on the kindness of her parents, she could really do whatever she wanted and play with him at will? Callum had never been so angry and lost his composure in his life. He even thought that maybe he should just go along with what his friend said and make the best of a bad situation. Just marry Nand directly. But for some reason, looking at the beautiful and elegant Nanda in front of him, the wedding dress she was wearing was the main one chosen by Chell. She was a bit taller than Chell, yet thinner. As a result, the waist was looser, and the chest area was rather empty. He couldn't help but think of how Chell looked when she tried on the wedding dress yesterday. She stood in front of him with a delicate and slender figure but with full curves. He had really been amazed at that time. Chell usually dressed quite plainly, mostly in loose and casual styles, so he had no idea that she could be so beautiful when dressed up. Callum, seeing that he was standing there motionless for a long time, Nand couldn't help but call out softly. But Callum suddenly raised his hand, tore off the groom's bonnet on his chest, and casually threw it on the ground. Chell is suddenly not feeling well. Let's postpone the wedding. After saying that, without looking at anyone, not even Nand, he directly turned around and left. Nand stood there in shock, gradually deadening her face, which turned bright red. Everyone's eyes were on her face and body. Some showed sympathy and felt sorry for her, but more seemed to be waiting to see her make a fool of herself. Nanda was trembling all over, and the tips of her fingers were ice-cold and trembling constantly. She had never experienced such humiliation in her life. Even though her family background was ordinary, she had managed to get into a university in the capital through her own efforts. As the department beauty of the Department of Architecture, she had always been the center of attention among the boys. Callum had also been constantly attentive to her on a daily basis. But this man whom she had treated like a lapdog actually made her lose face so much in full view of everyone. Why? Why? And roughly tore off her veil as her tears burst out. She threw the veil hard on the ground. It was not until I got on the plane leaving that I finally let out a long sigh of relief. The plane soared into the high clouds. Leaning back in my seat, I gently closed my eyes. Everything that was like a nightmare in my previous life came to a temporary end. At this moment, I didn't know what the future held, but I only knew one thing. After staying away from this ungrateful family, my future would only become brighter and brighter. When I was 5 years old, my parents died in an earthquake. At the most critical moment, they pushed Callum out with all their might, saving his life. So the Callum family naturally adopted me as a way to repay the kindness. They also arranged a marriage between me and Callum to ensure my life's security. But as I grew up, this kindness changed. As Callum's future became promising, I, an orphan girl, became the lucky one who was climbing up to the Callum family. Later, Callum went abroad to assist in construction and never sent any news. I sold the house left to me by my parents to treat Callum's mother's illness. She was paralyzed for 5 years, and I took good care of her for 5 years. After that, Callum's younger siblings got married and had children. She said that an elder sister-in-law was like a mother. I willingly took out my parents' inheritance. When Mia got married, it was me who gave her the confidence with a 360 zaru in dowry. When she gave birth to a daughter, I gave her a 60 zaru red envelope to save face. When she was subjected to domestic violence, I helped her seek justice, fought the divorce lawsuit, and personally picked her and the child up and brought them back to her parents' home. But in the end, when Callum wanted to drive me away, it was also her who said to Stefani, "We've raised you for more than 10 years. Our family has already paid off the kindness your family showed. To repay the kindness, we even sacrificed Big Brother's happiness for a lifetime. If you have any conscience, hurry up and make way for my sister-in-law." Later, when Callum came back with Nanda, it was also her and her mother who agreed to their marriage and happily accepted Nanda. They also tacitly approved Callum's decision to drive me away. In fact, Callum had been sending money back for 10 years. In fact, he and Nanda had already lived together and had children in a foreign country. Everyone in the Callum family knew this. Only I was kept in the dark and was squeezed out of the last bit of my use value. In the end, I died miserably of an incurable illness. Thinking about all this, I just felt it was extremely ridiculous. If my parents knew this in the underworld, would they regret risking their lives to save Callum back then? I would never know the answer to this. And I, who had led 2 lifetimes, no longer expected that good people would be rewarded. Callum made countless phone calls but couldn't get through, and all the phone numbers of the Callum family members were also blocked and deleted by Chell. Callum's mother didn't take it seriously at first. "Callum, don't go looking for her. Which new daughter-in-law would dare to make such a big fuss and put on such a show? She's just being coquettish, trying to make you yield. We won't give in." In her opinion, Chell was a helpless orphan girl. She was head over heels in love with her son, whom she regarded as her pride. She said simply couldn't really run away, making such a scene now was just to vent her anger. How could she be willing to give up such a great marriage? Callum stood by the window but didn't move for a long time. He had an ominous premonition. Shabal wasn't just making trouble with him, nor was she using a retreat as an advance. She was really angry, really didn't want to marry him anymore. The kiss that was pushed away when trying on the wedding dress yesterday. Last night, when he sent her back to the hotel, she was so obedient and sensible, urging him to leave, no longer like before where the slightest sign of trouble would make her anxiously look for him and cry. She was overly vigilant towards everyone of the opposite sex who appeared around him. She cared about him so much that it gradually annoyed him. So he had applied to go abroad to assist in construction without telling her. The kindness that should be repaid was repaid. He didn't owe her anything and could leave with a clear conscience. He could pursue another life he wanted. But he never expected that the one who would be first at the wedding would be Chell. "Mom, what about my gold jewelry?" Mia suddenly spoke up. "You promised me that as soon as she entered the door, you would immediately ask her to buy me a whole set of gold jewelry. Now that she's run away and disappeared, are my gold jewelry going to fly away too?" Callum's heart suddenly skipped a beat. Chell's parents had left her a considerable inheritance. Besides houses and shops, there was also a large amount of cash savings. In fact, over the years, on the surface it was the family that was raising her, but in reality, Callum had heard about how much money the Callum family had spent from Chel's family. Now that they couldn't get in touch with Chel, but as long as the things in her name were still there, that meant she didn't really want to leave. She was just trying to scare him out of anger. What are you in a hurry for? When she comes back and begs her brother to marry her, you can just ask her for whatever you want. Callum's mother said casually. But Mia was still pouting. Who knows when she'll come back? What if she doesn't come back? How could that be? You know how much she likes your brother. That's true. If it weren't for the fact that she's really sincere to my brother, I wouldn't have agreed to this marriage. Callum suddenly turned around and said, Mom, you go out and ask someone to find out right away. Find out what? Find out whether the properties in Chel's name are still there. Callum's mother immediately got anxious. Callum, what do you mean by that? If they're all still there, it means Chel is just having a tantrum with me this time. If they're all gone. Callum suddenly laughed at himself and didn't say anything further. But Callum's mother immediately understood. She couldn't sit still any longer and rushed out in a hurry. I'll go and find someone to find out right away. Those few houses of hers and the shops. It won't be easy to sell them off in a short time. Brother, what exactly do you mean? Could Chel really have run away from the wedding? Mia suddenly got anxious. She had already boasted in front of a group of cousins. Now if Chi-del really ran away from the wedding, wouldn't all her jewelry be gone? Where would she put her face? Callum sneered and looked at her. What are you in a hurry for? Didn't you always dislike her and not want the sister-in-law who would turn their back on money? Yeah, who would turn their back on money? So while the family looked down on Chel, they still held on to the marriage contract. And he himself deep down, didn't he think the same way? Chattel was rich but helpless. All her relatives had died in the earthquake and she was deeply in love with him. Marrying her would mean that her things would naturally become the family's. So he could safely apply to go abroad to assist in construction without any worries. Mia was despicable and selfish. Wasn't he also such a despicable person? Brother, she won't really leave, will she? Callum walked out expressionlessly. I don't know, brother. If she really leaves, what should we do? Mia stomped her feet repeatedly. Mom said she wanted to change to her villa and has already paid the deposit. Callum sneered. Whoever wants to change the villa should pay for it. Brother, Callum slammed the door and left, shutting out the ear-piercing cries behind him. I went to a southern city that I had always been fond of when I was applying for university's back van. Since Kay went to Beijing, I chased after him and went to Beijing as well. But actually my dream university was not the one in Beijing. Now that I have a lot of free time and am financially independent, naturally I have the conditions to fulfill my dream. After settling down, I directly bought a two-bedroom apartment near that university. After half a month of rest, I started preparing for the PIS-TANS examination. Since I couldn't come to study here as an undergraduate, it would be nice to pursue my postgrad studies here. In my past life, Callum achieved great success and fame in his career. When he returned, his family was reunited. They moved into a new house and he married a new wife. He was extremely prosperous. But what about me? People say the whole city is like a brocade of flowers. Yet I came at a time when spring had passed. The spring scenery of the whole city that I missed in my past life, I will make it up for myself in this life. In the second month after I settled down, Callum, who was supposed to go abroad for 8 weeks, suddenly showed up. The spring scenery was beautiful at that time. I had just come out of the school library and saw Callum standing downstairs. At a glance, he had become much thinner, but he still stood out in the bustling crowd. If not for this, I wouldn't have poured all my love into him during my innocent girlhood. But now, the person who could make my heart race and my face blush with just a glance, I can look at him with a calm heart without the slightest tremble. I held my bucks and continued walking forward. Called my name in a low voice, Chabelle. What's up? I looked at him with indifferent eyes, just like looking at any passing stranger. I've been looking for you. What do you want with me? You're my Fong Qi. We have an engagement. We're betra. It's just an engagement, not a marriage registration. It's not legally binding. Chabel, Callum's white shirt was still spotlessly clean. The way he wore glasses used to be my favorite. Now he stood in front of me exactly as I used to like him. But what was the point? After you left, I thought a lot. I admit I didn't handle things properly with Nanda. I just admired some of her academic achievements. There was no romantic feeling between us. I've made it clear to Nanda. She went abroad half a month ago and will come back in the future. Chell, I promise there won't be anything like this again. Come back with me. I haven't cancelled the wedding arrangements. As long as you come back, the wedding can be held at any time. Why do you think I'll go back with you? Because I used to like you so much. I looked at him and smiled. Callum, haven't you realized yet? From the moment I left, you mean nothing to me anymore. Chell, I know what happened before hurt you and I've reflected on it. I can swear that nothing happened between me and Nand. Does that matter, Callum? I don't care at all about what happened between you and Nand. Because I don't like you anymore. That's impossible. We grew up together, Chabel. You've liked me for so many years. Just because I liked you for so many years doesn't mean you did. Apply to go abroad for award, Clow, and plan to leave directly on our wedding day, right? Callum's expression changed drastically. How do you know? I also know that you're going with Nand. If nothing unexpected happens, you'll build a new home in a foreign country. And I, who was left in China by you, would have been kept in the dark all the time. Taking care of your family, fulfilling filial duties, emptying my family fortune, being exploited and then being kicked out of the house. Is that right, Callum? His face turned deathly pale and he looked at me in horror as if seeing a ghost. But I didn't let him go. I took a slow step forward. If I'm not wrong, is your mother seriously ill? Callum suddenly took a step back. How do you know? Calculating the time, Kunk's mother should have just been diagnosed with a serious illness. She was so concerned about Face that she hid it from relatives and friends and the news hadn't spread. So Callum, did you come to me and ask me to go back because you really knew you were wrong and wanted to make up for me? Or was it just to make me go back and be a nanny to take care of your mother and by the way take out the inheritance I got to fill the bottomless bit of your family? How can you think of our Callum family like this? Callum's face turned pale and green. After all, she raised you for more than 10 years. She deserves some credit, doesn't she, Shabel? The money that Callum family has taken over the years is enough to repay this kindness of raising Callum. Don't come to me again. I have no relationship with the family anymore and I have nothing to do with you either. After saying that, I walked past him towards the school gate. But wouldn't give up and pestered me again. Chell, calm down and think it over. Can you really let go of our feelings of so many years? Yes, I let go a long time ago, Callum. You should let go too instead of pestering me here. You'd better find a way to earn more money. After all, there will be a lot of expenses in your family in the future. Chell, do you really have to be so heartless? I found it a bit funny, Callum. When your whole family plotted against me, why didn't you show a bit of compassion? But Chell, we actually didn't harm you. All of this is just your own speculation. So what? Even if it's just speculation, I'm just nipping this possibility in the bud. Isn't that okay, Chabel? After all, we know each other well. Can you guarantee that the people you marry in the future will plot against you? I laughed. Do I only have the way of getting married? Callum stayed in the city for a week. Later I called the police and then he left dejectedly. It seemed that he knew I was determined and not to turn back. After he left, he didn't pester me anymore. When I was successfully admitted to Postigate School, some classmates from my hometown contacted me privately. They said that the family was now in disgrace and on the verge of collapse. Gradually had into my obsession more and more. Insiders started to reveal that their family was ungrateful, heartless, and bullied the only daughter of their benefactor. So Callum's mother got her retribution and was Beverin. Jasper was idle and caused a lot of trouble outside, and he was imprisoned for several months. Mia didn't get into university and found a hooligan boyfriend. Because she didn't want to take care of her mother, she simply moved to her boyfriend's house. The Callum family could only rely on Callum to support them. The huge medical expenses plus the penalty for the villa that Callum's mother had booked before emptied Callum's personal savings. He's really in a tough spot now. His former classmates and friends no longer associate with him. After hearing this, I just laughed it off. Without me, their big blood bag, their lives are really difficult now. But what does all this have to do with me? I have a house, a car, and a substantial savings. And I can continue to enjoy my carefree student life. Maybe I'll meet someone I like in the future. Maybe not. And it's also good to live alone. The filthy quagmire of the Callum family can't disgust me anymore. Later I heard that Callum left the Callum family and got back together with Nand. He even settled in Shanghai with Nanda. Nanda gave birth to a son for him and their life seemed to be going well. But a few years later, Callum returned alone from Shanghai in a sorry state. By that time, the Callum family had sold everything they could. All that was left was a shabby rental house. C's mother didn't receive treatment and proper care and died last year. Jasper went to Myanmar to engage in telecom fraud and his life or death is unknown. Mia got married early and had 3 children. She was often beaten by her husband. Callum lived alone in the shabby rental house, drinking heavily every day. The son Nanda gave birth to was not his. At the beginning, she was with him just to find a cheap father for her child. After he worked hard to raise the child, Nanda turned around and got back together with the child's biological father and kicked him out. When I went back to my hometown to hold the anniversary memorial service for my parents, I saw him once. He was only in his early 30s, but most of his hair had turned white. He was reeking of alcohol and sitting on the street in a daze. Passers-by looked at him with disgust. Who could tell that he was the once glorious Callum? I'm not overly sympathetic like a saint, but still I couldn't help but feel a bit sad. In fact, when we were all children, Callum was very good to me. But later we all grew up and changed. When I walked past him, he seemed to recognize me and stood up excitedly. But then he suddenly turned around and covered his face tightly. I just pretended not to see him or recognize him and kept walking forward. Another spring has come, another year. When the flowers are like a brode, I won't look back and I won't forget. I will just keep walking forward forever until spring. The end.